There's been stories about it, and the one that really sticks in my mind is one time Bob Dodge, he lived west of here, an old timer. Him and Dad was really good friends and stuff. And Bob was a real storyteller, and they ran horses all over this country, and he was quite a goer. Well, at one point in time when I was little, for whatever reason, he brought up a story about Carrizo Springs, and there was 3 guys that came through there, come from the east, and rode in there, and there was 2 older guys and then a younger kid with them. And this kid supposedly was like 14, 15 years old, and the older guys, I'm sure, was in their 20s. But anyway, they stopped and they robbed the bank at Carrizo Springs. And according to Bob, they got 2 cigar boxes full of coins and went west. And they went on west, that's about 1.5 miles, 2 miles over into Cottonwood. Like I said, he was a kid, and so those older guys made him hold the horses, and they went and buried that money, hid the money, and they left. And I don't know where they went or whatever. And that was kind of the end of the story. I always thought that should have been money buried at Cottonwood somewhere. And that's all Bob ever said anything about it. Well, then Bob has a younger brother, Bud Dodge, and he lived with him when he was a kid. And he was a brand inspector. And so he was here brand inspecting some cattle one day. And for some reason, that story kind of came up. And I asked him a little bit about it. And so he filled me in, and he said, yeah. He said there was a guy that showed up, he said an old man, when they were living in Cottonwood, which I'm assuming had to be somewhere in the 30s, the way everything kind of fits together. Which would make this guy, if he was 15 in, say, 89, the middle of the town, the mid-30s, he would have been between 55 and 60. And so at that point in time, he would have been an old man. But anyway, he showed up at their house, and he told them the story. That's where Bob got the story, I guess, eventually. He said he was the young guy with the 2 older guys that robbed the bank. But then he came back and he said one of them guys was kind of a thief, and he got shot. And the other one he thought died in prison. And this kid, I really don't know where he had spent his lifetime or what had happened. But when he got old, he come back there and wanted to stay with them. And he said, I think I can find that money. But anyway, he showed up over there and asked Bob and Bud, told him the story, and wondered if he could stay with them for a while. And he said, I think I can find that money if I had some time. And they said, sure, just stay, camp, do whatever. So he was around there, Bud said, for a while, I don't know, 2-3 weeks or whatever. And he told them that at night, if the moon was just right, you could go out at night, and silver, you could take water and throw it in the air, kind of, and it would kind of glisten to show you where that silver was. And Bud said he didn't believe it. But he said the guy took them out one night, and they put some silver coins in the grass and did it. And he said, sure enough, you could see a little, kind of see sparkles or whatever in the water. And so I asked Bud, I said, well, did he find the money, you think? And Bud said, I'm sure he did. He said, one day we come home, he was there that morning or the night before, and he said, we come home that evening, And that guy was gone, and he said there was a few coins laying on the table. And he said, I just know he found it. So I didn't think any more about it. And then Bob Dodge, one of his daughters was named Lahoma. And he had 3 daughters, and they lived over there. Homie was Bob Dodge's daughter. And they never did have any kids, but Homie and Mother was the same age. And they was always real good friends and stuff. And so after Warren died, Homie was there. And so I'd go to Springfield, I'd stop by and visit with her every now and then. And the last time I was there, she said, well, I'm going to give them this house and I'm going to move into nursing home. And she said, you're about as close to family as I have. Is there anything in this house you want? And there was an old fiddle hanging on the wall. And I just looked at that fiddle and she said, do you want that fiddle? She said, that was my granddad's brother's fiddle. He brought it over with him in 1901 from Scotland or wherever they came from. And I said, oh, I can't take that. Yep, that's yours. You want it, nobody else wants it. She just got up and went over and took it off the wall and handed it to me. And, is there anything else you want? And I said, well, I remember seeing a picture of Bob Dodge when he was a young guy, and they said it was when Homie was born at Grenada. They went back and forth from here to Grenada a lot. And he was sitting on the stump out there with a dog. And she said, oh yeah, that picture's right in here. So she just went and got it. And we come back out and there was a chest of drawers sitting there. And she dropped down on her knees and opened the bottom door and went to handing me stuff. Here, take this, just trinket stuff that she had down there. And I got home and got to looking at it, and there was a little kind of key ring that held 3 nickels. It looks like a ring that probably was on a key ring on a car, and I'm assuming they carried it there whenever they had parking meters in town. So when you parked your car and took your keys out, you had this little ring that held 2 or 3 nickels, and you put a nickel in the parking meter and did your deal, and you always had it at that point in time. And there was 3 nickels in it. There's an Indian head nickel and another nickel that's like 1890 or something, and another nickel that's 1864. And I didn't think anything about that at that point in time when she gave me that. Probably around 2004 or 5. Well, Casey and Linnea are selling meat. Well, there was a guy from Wichita, Kansas, Raymond Short, called me one night, and he had saw that ad. He was wanting to buy meat, and I told him that they sold it, but he was a real talker. He helped Bob Dodge back at that point in time. Like, I'm assuming it was probably the early 30s or mid 30s when Homie was, 10 or 12 years old or whatever. And he knew all that country. And when he found out who I was, and he told me stuff that Bob had told me forever. But this guy, and he'd been there because he knew all the directions of the Everett Canyon. He had a really good memory. He knew where everything was. He told me about this story. And I told him, yeah, I'd heard about that story. And he said, Homie, she was up running around like kids do up under the rim rock, looking around one time. And he said, she found where that guy had found that money. And he said, we went up there and looked, and sure enough, there was the little holes in the ground. Just, you could tell that something had been there, but it was gone, dug up. And he said, I think homie found a coin or two. Well, later, when Raymond Short told me that he thought homie had a coin or two, it just dawned on me that maybe that nickel maybe that's where it came from. So I went and got it out, and sure enough, it's 1864. It fits the date of the town. Like it could have been in the bank at that point in time. The other two nickels are later, so I know they didn't come out of the bank because the date's not right. But the 1864 nickel could well be either the nickel, if she found it where that guy buried it, or possibly if this guy threw 2 or 3 coins out on the table, Bob could have gave each one of them little girls one of those coins, and she just kept it forever. And whether it actually came out of that bank, I have no idea, but it makes a really a good story. And it all comes together, really. I mean, where else would that coin have came from?